Hey everyone, welcome back for another deep dive.
Yeah.
And today we're going to be looking at something I think you'll find pretty interesting.
Yeah.
We're diving into the world of fashion and luxury, but not in the way you might think.
Right.
We're not talking about the latest trends or, celebrity style.
Yeah.
We're talking about the serious wealth this industry is generating.
Yeah, the money
The money, exactly.
behind the glamour.
Exactly. And to help us unpack all this,
Yeah.
we've got a fantastic report from Fashion Sites that came out in February 2025. And it's called,
Catchy title?
it is catchy, right?
Okay.
Behind the Fortunes.
I like it.
I like it too.
Gets right to the point.
It does. And that's what we're doing today, getting right to the point of how much money this industry is actually making.
Yeah, and it's kind of mind-blowing when you see the numbers.
It is so, before we even jump into the specifics, like who are the big players and how they get so rich,
Right.
let's set the stage a little bit.
Okay.
The fashion and luxury industry has ballooned into a $2.5 trillion industry.
Yeah, it's huge.
Huge. I mean, for context, healthcare is about 8.5 trillion globally.
Right.
Energy is something similar.
Yeah.
But fashion and luxury coming in at 2.5 trillion.
It's massive.
It's massive. And the crazy thing is that growth, it's been pretty consistent over the last 25 years.
Which is kind of surprising when you think about it, right? Because you've got economic ups and downs, you've got changing consumer trends.
And recessions.
Recessions, exactly. But fashion and luxury, they just keep growing.
They just keep growing.
Yeah.
So clearly something's working here.
Yeah, for sure.
So let's dig into who's behind this incredible success story, because I think when we talk about fashion billionaires,
Right.
a few names probably come to mind, right?
Yeah, for sure.
But what this report really highlights is that it's a tale of two dominant figures.
Really?
Yeah, it's a two-horse race.
Okay, tell me more.
So we've got Bernard Arnault of LVMH,
Of course, the luxury giant.
the luxury giant,
Yeah.
exactly. And then we've got Amancio Ortega.
Okay, now he's a little less known outside the fashion world.
Yeah, maybe not a household name, but he's the founder of Inditex.
Ah, Inditex, the parent company of Zara.
Exactly. So we've got luxury and we've got fast fashion.
Two very different approaches.
Two totally different approaches. And yet these two individuals together, they account for a staggering 55% of the total billionaire wealth in the entire industry.
Wow, over half?
Over half. It's crazy.
That really puts it into perspective, right? It's not just a bunch of smaller players. It's really concentrated at the top.
It's like the winners take all in this industry.
Yeah, and it makes you wonder, how did they get there?
Exactly. And that's what we're going to unpack. Because their success stories, they're actually really fascinating and highlight these very different approaches.
One's all about that luxury prestige, and the other one is about fast fashion affordability.
It's like the tortoise and the hare, you know? But in this case, they're both winning.
I love that analogy.
And here's another thing that I found really interesting.
Okay.
A lot of these massive fortunes are actually relatively new.
Really? So it's not just inherited wealth being passed down through generations.
Not at all.
Interesting.
It suggests that something has really accelerated wealth creation in recent decades.
So like new money.
New money. Exactly. And the report actually put some numbers to this to really drive this point home.
Okay, I'm all ears.
So back in 2000, the combined net worth of all the fashion billionaires on the Forbes 200 list, it was $51 billion.
51 billion. Okay.
By 2024,
Fast forward.
that number skyrockets to $617 billion.
Whoa, that's like a tenfold increase.
More than tenfold.
That's wild.
It's huge.
So clearly something's happening in this industry.
Something's happening.
It's not just about those legacy brands anymore.
Exactly. It's not just about the old guard.
So there's room for new players
There's room for new players.
to come in and shake things up.
Shake things up, exactly. And it shows that innovation
Right.
and adaptability,
Yeah.
they're key in this industry, whether you're dealing with high-end luxury or you're dealing with trend-driven fast fashion.
And speaking of those two approaches, I'm dying to know more about how these two guys at the top, Bernard Arnault and Amancio Ortega, how do they actually build their empires?
Yeah, let's get into the nuts and bolts of their strategies, because they're both incredibly successful, but they've taken very different paths to get there.
Okay, so let's start with Arnault. He's the luxury guy.
He's the king of luxury.
So he's built LVMH into this absolute powerhouse through strategic acquisitions.
It's like a who's who of luxury brands.
It really is. I mean, he owns iconic brands like Louis Vuitton, Dior, even Tiffany & Co.
It's like he's created a whole universe of luxury.
Yeah,
But
exactly.
it can't just be about buying up these famous names, right?
No, you're right. There's got to be more to his strategy.
There's got to be a method to the madness.
So what's the secret sauce?
Well, the real genius of Arnault's approach lies in leveraging synergies across his brands.
Synergies. What do you mean by that?
So think about it. He's got this whole portfolio of companies, right?
Right, a whole family of brands.
Exactly.
Huh.
And by owning them all together, he can share resources.
Ah, so it's like economies of scale.
Kind of, yeah. So we're talking about things like manufacturing,
Okay.
marketing, distribution.
Makes sense.
So instead of each brand having to build its own separate infrastructure,
They can kind of piggyback off each other.
they piggyback off each other, they share resources, and that makes each brand more profitable.
That's smart.
It is. It's really smart.
So it's not just about the brand names, it's about the whole system he's built.
It's the system, exactly.
That's fascinating.
Now, on the flip side, we've got Amancio Ortega and his fast fashion empire Inditex.
Right, with brands like Zara, Massimo Dutti, Pull, and Bear.
They've really revolutionized the way people shop for clothes.
Yes, Zara especially, they're known for being super fast.
They are the masters of fast fashion.
They get those designs from the runway to the store in like, what, a few weeks?
It's incredible.
It's mind-boggling how they do it.
So how do they do it?
It's all about speed efficiency and constant adaptation.
So it's like the opposite of the luxury approach,
In a lot of ways, yes.
which is slow and deliberate.
Right, crafting those high-end pieces.
But Zara, it's all about minimizing inventory, responding quickly to trends, and keeping customers coming back for more.
New arrivals every week, it's like a constant stream of fresh stuff.
It's like fast fashion on steroids.
Exactly, and it's clearly working.
It is. So we've got Arnault with his luxury conglomerate and Ortega with his fast fashion machine.
Both leading the pack in very different ways.
And both incredibly wealthy.
Right.
Which raises an interesting question. What does their contrasting success tell us about the fashion industry overall?
It's a really good question, and I think it speaks to the sheer diversity of the fashion and luxury market.
There's room for everyone, it seems.
Yeah, there's room for that high-end exclusivity and that fast fashion accessibility.
And both models have proven to be incredibly profitable.
Hugely profitable.
Which actually reminds me of today's sponsor, Cloutfit.ai.
Oh yeah, tell me about them.
So they're a B2B fashion commerce company.
Okay.
And they're doing some really interesting things with AI.
AI in fashion, that sounds intriguing.
They're using AI to help brands boost user engagement
Okay.
and increase their revenue.
So they're helping brands kind of navigate this complex landscape we've been talking about.
Exactly. And what I think is really cool about Cloutfit.ai
Yeah.
is that it was founded by some real industry veterans.
Oh, really? Like,
So we're talking the former CPO and CTO of major fashion e-commerce companies.
wow, so they really know their stuff.
They know their stuff. They've been in the trenches.
So they're not just tech people, they understand the fashion side too.
Exactly. And that's what makes them so unique.
I'm definitely going to check them out after this.
Me too. But before we get too distracted by all the cool fashion tech,
Right back to our billionaires.
back to our billionaires, there's one more crucial factor we need to discuss.
Okay, I'm listening.
The recent luxury boom
Okay.
and the signs that it might be slowing down.
Ooh, that's where it gets really interesting.
It does.
I'm all ears.
Let's dig into that right after this.
You know, the past few years have seen this surge in luxury spending, and it's partly fueled by the pandemic's impact on consumer behavior.
Oh, interesting. How so?
Well, with travel restrictions and lockdowns, people couldn't spend on experiences like vacations or dining out.
Right?
So they turned to luxury goods as a way to treat themselves.
Ah, it's like that retail therapy effect, but on a much grander scale.
Exactly. And luxury brands, they were quick to recognize this shift. We saw it with everything from designer handbags to high-end sneakers.
Oh, yeah. I remember all those articles about Chanel raising the price of their classic flat bag. Like, every few months, it felt like the price went up another $1,000.
That's a perfect example. That bag, which cost around $1,650 back in 2008, was selling for over $10,800 in 2024.
That's insane.
And Chanel's not alone. A lot of luxury brands have been implementing similar price increases, and it's contributed significantly to their profit growth.
While some industries were struggling during the pandemic, luxury brands were raising prices and raking it in.
Pretty much, and I bet the shareholders in LVMH were pretty happy.
I would imagine so. But here's the thing. There are signs that this luxury boom might be reaching its peak.
Really?
Yeah.
What makes you say that?
Well, the so-called aspirational consumer, those who splurge on luxury items, occasionally they're starting to pull back.
Interesting. Why do you think that is? Is it the price hikes, or is there something else going on?
I think it's a combination of factors.
Okay.
The inflated prices are definitely a deterrent, especially with all the economic uncertainty, you know?
Right. People are feeling a little less secure about their finances these days.
Exactly. And plus you have to remember that some of that pandemic-driven desire for luxury goods It was
It
temporary.
was like a way to cope with being stuck at home.
Exactly. And as things have returned to normal, people are shifting their spending back to experiences like travel and dining out.
Makes sense they're making up for lost time.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So luxury brands might be facing a bit of a reality check,
Yeah, they can't just keep raising prices forever.
especially if people are starting to tighten their belts.
Right, and there's actually some data to support this. A recent report from Altagamma,
Who are they?
they're a luxury industry association,
Okay.
and their report showed a significant drop in the number of luxury consumers over the past couple of years, like a really big drop.
How big are we talking?
They've lost 50 million customers since their peak in 2021.
50 million. That's huge.
It is a big chunk of their market.
Makes you wonder what this means for those fashion billionaires we were talking about, especially Bernard Arnault.
Yeah.
His empire is built on these high-end brands.
Right. Could this slowdown impact his position at the top?
Exactly. And it brings us back to that two-horse race between Arnault and Amancio Ortega.
Ah, the luxury giant versus the fast fashion king,
Exactly. Remember, they've been vying for that top spot for decades.
with Arnault holding a seemingly unassailable lead?
Right. But as luxury spending slows down and consumers become more value conscious.
Ortega's fast fashion empire, with its focus on affordability and trends, is gaining ground.
It's like they're perfectly positioned for this moment.
Right, they're offering what people want right now, stylish clothes at prices they can actually afford.
So is Zara's strategy actually going to pay off? Could Ortega overtake Arnault in the near future?
Well, as of February 2025, Arnault's net worth has taken a hit. It's down to $190 billion.
Okay, still a lot of money.
Oh, yeah, definitely. But Ortega's fortune has risen to $123 billion.
Wow. So the gap is closing?
It's still significant, but it's definitely narrowing.
It's getting interesting.
The fashion landscape is constantly evolving. Consumer preferences can shift rapidly, and that's what makes this industry so dynamic.
You never know who's going to come out on top.
Exactly. Who would have thought a few years ago that the king of fast fashion could be challenging the dominance of the luxury giant?
This is why I love these deep dives. We start with a seemingly straightforward topic, and we end up uncovering all these complex trends and fascinating insights.
It's like peeling back the layers of an onion.
It is, and it's a reminder that even in an industry as glamorous as fashion, there's a lot more happening beneath the surface.
Absolutely. And as we wrap up this part of our deep dive, I think it's important to acknowledge the incredible wealth creation that's been happening in both the fashion and luxury industries.
They've shown remarkable resilience and adaptability.
Yeah, even in the face of global crises and economic uncertainty.
From luxury conglomerates to fast fashion giants, this industry is a force to be reckoned with.
No doubt about it. And it leaves us with some really interesting questions to ponder.
Like what?
Well, what does this recent slowdown in luxury spending and Ortega's rise mean for the future of the industry? What does it tell us about the evolving tastes of consumers and the potential power shift that could be on the horizon?
These are definitely questions worth exploring further.
For sure.
But before we get ahead of ourselves, let's zoom back in on these two fashion titans, Arnault and Ortega.
Okay, back to our main characters.
Both have achieved incredible success, but their approaches have been so different.
Two sides of the same coin.
What can we learn from their contrasting strategies? It's amazing how both these models, like the luxury conglomerate versus fast fashion, they've both been so successful at generating wealth.
Yeah, and what's interesting is that despite their different strategies, they've both tapped into something fundamental about what consumers want.
Right. Like one's all about exclusivity and the other one is about staying on trend.
Exactly. On the one hand, you have the allure of luxury, that timeless appeal of craftsmanship and exclusivity.
Those pieces that you'll keep forever.
Yeah, exactly. And then on the other hand, you have fast fashion with its constant stream of new trends and accessible prices.
So it's like they're appealing to two different sides of human nature, right?
I think so.
The desire to stand out and own something truly unique
Right, like a status symbol.
versus the need to stay current and express yourself through the latest trends.
It's like wanting to fit in but also stand out at the same time.
And I think what's interesting is that at the heart of each model, there's a strong core brand.
Oh, absolutely.
So for LVMH, it's Louis Vuitton, the epitome of luxury.
Yeah, that brand recognition and heritage are so powerful.
It's like that name carries so much weight.
It does. It really does.
And it's like Louis Vuitton is the anchor of Arnault's empire.
providing a solid foundation for all those other brands in his portfolio.
Exactly. And then for Inditex, it's Zara.
The master of trend setting and affordable fashion.
They've really figured out how to deliver what customers want when they want it.
They're always one step ahead.
And that ability to adapt quickly, that's what's allowing them to thrive in this fast-paced market.
They're not afraid to experiment.
They're not.
And that's probably why they're attracting all these younger shoppers who value individuality and self-expression.
That makes sense. And speaking of different parts of the world, it's interesting to think about the geographic distribution of this fashion wealth.
Oh, yeah, for sure. You might assume it's spread out evenly, but that's not the case at all.
So are you saying there are certain regions that dominate?
Absolutely. Europe, particularly France and Italy, they're the powerhouses.
And that makes sense. When you think about it.
It does.
Those regions have centuries-old traditions of luxury and craftsmanship.
It's in their DNA.
They're home to all those iconic fashion houses that have been around for generations.
The Chanels, the Diors, the Guccis, the Pradas.
Those names are synonymous with, like, haute couture and impeccable tailoring.
And that heritage, that history, it's a huge part of their appeal.
Especially to consumers who associate European luxury with quality and prestige.
Exactly. It's like they're buying into a lifestyle.
So even though we live in a globalized world, those European brands still hold a certain mystique.
Oh, for sure. It's like they represent a certain level of aspiration.
But are there any signs of this changing? Are we seeing any shifts in the geographic landscape?
I mean, there are definitely some emerging players in Asia.
Like who?
Well, you've got Tadashi Anna of Uniqlo
Okay.
and Chris Xu of Shein.
I've heard of Shein.
Yeah, they're gaining popularity with their focus on affordability, technology, and innovation.
So they're appealing to a younger, more digitally savvy consumer.
Exactly, and they're definitely ones to watch.
So it sounds like while Europe still reigns supreme, there are some contenders emerging from other parts of the world.
They're ready to shake things up.
This is fascinating. I feel like we've only just scratched the surface of this topic.
I know, right? There's so much more to explore.
But it's been such an incredible journey,
Yeah.
exploring the world of fashion from a completely different perspective.
It's a reminder that even in an industry that's often associated with glamour and fleeting trends,
There's so much more to it.
there's strategy, innovation, wealth creation happening behind the scenes.
And the stories of these fashion billionaires like Arnault and Ortega, they're just fascinating.
They really are.
It shows the power of vision adaptability and really understanding what consumers want.
And speaking of understanding what consumers want,
Yes, our sponsor, clotefit.ai.
they're doing some really innovative things.
They are. They're using AI to help fashion brands boost user engagement and increase their revenue.
And they were founded by real industry veterans.
The former CPO and CTO of major fashion e-commerce companies.
So they know what they're talking about.
They definitely do. If you're interested in the intersection of fashion and technology, I highly recommend checking them out.
I second that.
And if you found this deep dive useful, why not share it with someone who might enjoy it?
Spread the knowledge.
And don't forget to subscribe for more deep dives into all sorts of fascinating topics.
We'll see you next time.
Stay curious, everyone.